Here's a quick update to the last video that I've made about the COVID situation going on in Hefei. So that's the city where NIO in joint venture with JAC has got 2 factories. And so here's the update by the authorities and some insights also into the production. So first of all, and I posted this one already on Friday in my Patreon community, that the city announced that on the 27th of October they did tests of 8.9 million people. And so they found 2 abnormal cases in a certain district, Baohe district, and they've dealt with it. But also the Yaohai district, in which they had previously some cases, has no new positive cases in consecutive 4 days. And so that was the situation going into this weekend. Still no new cases, no escalation, and also certainly not a real lockdown. However, you know, as it is with Omicron, it's spreading fast. Of course, there is the uncertainty whether or not there is any outbreak. And so the measures were in place going into the weekend. And let's see now what's the news. So this one is once again taken from the official government website of Hefei in WeChat. And this post is actually from today. And I'm basically saying here, after the city's hard work day and night and the current situation of the epidemic prevention and control in Hefei continues to improve, especially in this Yaohai district where the epidemic is relatively serious. And so after repeated serious research and judgment by the disease control experts, the Yaohai District Epidemic Prevention and Control Headquarters decided and report to the Hefei Epidemic Prevention and Control Emergency Headquarters for approval that from today, 30th of October, Yaohai District will unblock low-risk communities in an orderly manner, and it's expected to unblock 194 communities tonight. But they're warning here, unblocking does not mean unblocking, and letting go does not mean relaxing. So the situation remains tense, and so I think they will look for a transitioning period of 3 to 7 days in which there is still dynamic monitoring of the situation. And to give you some context here, this is the city district of Hefei. It's a very big city, close to 10 million inhabitants, but you may have never heard about it because it's one of the smaller cities in China. And what I've done here is highlighted the 2 factories. So this one is the new one. This is close to the airport, actually, NIO Park, in joint venture again with JAC, where they're building the ET5. And then here, that one is closer actually to the city main center. That's the old factory, if you will, Factory 1, that is also in joint venture with JAC, and seems to be less affected actually than the new factory somehow. So maybe those outskirts are where they have different measures in place than, for example, right here. And if you just look at the distance here, so this is by car 50 minutes from one factory to the other factory, so that's close to 45 kilometers. And so you see that this is not a tiny place, and also even though that's in the same city, these places can be quite far away from each other, and therefore have a quite different situation. Also, we need to note that for both factories, it's unsure how cars can go in and out of the city, and also what this means for the supply of the factory. However, with the news over the weekend now that there have not been new cases, it seems like there is an expectation for relaxation, unblocking of some of these districts, and therefore, well, there might be still restrictions in place for mobility and sort of things, but this should definitely ease up the situation a little bit. And if there's not a new flare-up, then that might mean that going forward, it seems like there might be a easing up of the situation for NIO's production sites there. In other news, it seems that NIO is making some progress, at least in that seems to be the first factory where the ET7 is produced, because what you can see here is an Excel sheet where people are tracking their orders as well as when they receive the notification that they are actually receiving the car. So this is done in private groups of NIO owners, and there are some limitations to how reliable this data set is, because there's less and less groups who know each other and can collect such data. So what you can see here, if I'm correct, is that people on the 6th of September, so early September, got their car, which they ordered online around the 20th of May. So this means from the order to actually receiving the car, it took about 4 months, maybe a little bit less back then, in the beginning of September. And if we're scrolling down, now, for example, here on the 28th of October, people got their car who placed the order actually in the beginning of September. So it's now down to almost 2 months wait time for the ET7 here. And this means NIO seems to have fixed the bottleneck on the ET7 production. If you remember, NIO also mentioned during the earnings call, and partly that was also seen in the delivery numbers, that the ET7 was actually going down in deliveries again, because NIO mentioned there was an issue with the casting. Initially, they had to change the supplier for it, and seems like they have now fixed this issue, and we could expect, based on that, that the ET7 delivery numbers should actually increase from now. So this means NIO is facing problems with especially the new factory where the ET5 is being produced, possibly during this lockdown situation. Meanwhile, they're making progress on the first factory, but it remains to be seen if there is an implication on deliveries in terms of getting cars out of the city. On top of that, of course, there has been the week off in October due to the holidays. So we'll see how much all of this has impacted NIO during this month. However, there will be progress going forward if both the COVID side eases, as well as if the incremental improvements with the factory there remain like this. Meanwhile, there's some interesting news coming out from Germany. You may know that the Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, is going to meet with President Xi as the first G7 representative. Actually, he's traveling to China in the beginning of November, and interesting person which might go with him, or at least somebody from his company here, is the founder of BioNTech, which is manufacturing this mRNA vaccine. And so this might be an interesting sign here, whether or not we may actually get a deal between China and Germany in the area of vaccines, and that could be a tremendous signal for an opening up. I pointed out before that also China's own vaccines aren't too bad either. If people got 3 shots, the issue is that not everyone is having a shot, and so China protecting their elderly, it's not sure whether or not this mRNA vaccine can actually change things dramatically. However, it would be a very huge sign. And now that Germany is allowing, first of all, to buy part of the Hamburg port for the Chinese COSCO investor, and also it looks like Germany will be allowing China to invest in one of their semiconductor companies and take them over, actually. So there are, some signs there of Germany-China cooperation there. And also Olaf Scholz could go to China and say, look, we give you those deals. Now what do you give us in return? There's also BASF, Siemens, Volkswagen, Deutsche Bank, and also Merck, another pharma company, going with him to China. I think a very, very important sign. I hope that China and Germany could actually be the adults in the room there, while we only have this bashing between the US and China. So pragmatic solutions and hopefully a get together there on the economic side. Speaking of that, I also recommend you to watch Tom Hayes' podcast of this week. I'm gonna play a clip right now, which is about what is really the impact on Chinese stocks by politics in terms of Xi Jinping, ZeroCovid that I've just discussed right now, and how much is actually priced in there by that, or are there other factors driving it? So once again, I'll put it in the comments there. Watch his video for a full take over the weekend, and then we'll see what's happening next week, and also in particular with the US dollar.
For everyone that's worried about Xi Jinping, it's the same guy who's been in power for the last 10 years. And we're going to distinguish why China stocks have been in the gutter, and actually discern that it hasn't just been Chinese stocks. It's been a lot of stocks that are correlated with a strong dollar. And what happens here? So let's look. This chart here is the US dollar. When it goes down, what happens? Emerging markets rally like it's going out of style. KWEB rallies like it's going out of style. BABA rallies like it's going out of style. It starts going up in January of 2021. The dollar starts going up, little fake up. Guess what happens? The emerging markets peak and roll over. China internet peaks and rolls over. BABA peaks and rolls over. And what does the market attribute it to fully? Xi Jinping caused all of these stocks to go down. Well, if it was Xi Jinping only, why did the emerging markets collapse? Why did Warren Buffett's StoneCo, which is a Brazilian consumer credit company, completely collapse exactly the same way that KWEB and emerging markets as a whole, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, etc., and Alibaba, why did they all crash at the same time? And Nubank crashed because the dollar was strong. And that's the key. And we've been talking about that in the past, but the correlation really hit me over the weekend when I was, we spent a lot of talking about Xi's policies and stimulus and all that stuff. This is going to change. Brazilian equities, Buffett-backed Brazilian equities, Alibaba, KWEB, emerging markets as a whole. This is going to hockey stick and go to the moon, just like it did every time once the dollar stops going up and reverses. And we think we're there. We're going to talk about why. Now, number 5, if all of the decline in Chinese stocks is attributable to Xi, someone commented, I should say Xi, not Xi, the CCP and ZeroCovid policy, why did Buffett-backed Brazilian stocks StoneCo and Nubank suffer the same fate during the same time? Xi has no effect on the Brazilian consumer.
And that brings up this issue. There's a tsunami of money flowing into the U.S. because of the higher interest rates. But at a certain point, if confidence in the U.S. economy goes down,
or even flickers,
you could see a massive outpouring, and that would be catastrophic because, ironically, if it starts pouring out, interest rates go up. Mm-hmm. Why? Because the U.S. has to float its debt.
Yeah.
All right. Right now, it's okay because they're taking inflation dollars and paying off past debts. But as soon as that point is over, they're going to be in a situation where a lot more of the federal budget is going to be going to pay debt service.
Okay. What happens when it starts to flow out? The question is going to be, where is it going to flow to?
Well,
big question.
An economy that is
stable,
able to plan, able to execute, stable, has a stable currency, has
growth,
production, has big markets. I can't imagine what country that would be other than China.
Because I was thinking that you certainly wouldn't move to Europe because European is not competitive. There's no question. UK also is collapsing. Japan, there are issues.
We can't just gloss over that. I mean, astounding. Liz Truss, just saying, we're going to invent money to pay off people's bills. She clearly has no plan. Stalwarts are coming out, and she's gotten a big raspberry from everybody, including the royal family, who were not very interested in having her around on the goodwill tour.
So Europe is really out of the question in terms of flow of capital. I think it's going to be Asia, ex-Japan and Korea. Depends on whether or not Korea integrates itself further into the Asian economy. Japan, the situation is really quite dire. I saw it hit 146 yen to the dollar. And even the Japanese central bank, which never does this, had to intervene in the currency markets.
Well, what else are they going to do? They're really being killed. And they have the largest amount of U.S. denominated debt. in theory, that's helping them because they're a holder of these treasuries, but they're at lower rates.
Yeah.
So at this time, if you buy now, it looks good. But if you're trying to offload, old treasuries and things like that at low rates, you're underwater.
That's right.
Thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next one.